This is their understanding of heaven. And I would just say, you know, I can only speak from how God has revealed himself to me. And he has revealed himself to me in the person of Jesus Christ, crucified and risen. That's where God meets me. I don't know where God, I barely know that. You know, I barely know how God reveals himself to me. I can't speak for anyone else. I don't know. Perhaps God has a different revelation for the Mormons or the people of Islam, or I don't know. I don't know.
I think for me, I just have to let God do that.
Yeah, that's kind of a God thing. Yep. I don't know. I don't know. I know for me that's not how God has revealed himself to me.
So this Book of Mormon is all written by Smith?
Joseph Smith, who got this information from these gold tablets that just happened to be buried in his backyard that we can't seem to find now.
He was traveling across the country for something like.
Well, he was running for his life until he finally caught up to
But I mean, when he
44.
discovered these, he wasn't at home. He wasn't in New York.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know. I think because I sort of it was under the banner of heaven. I think the way it describes him.
Well, I know they were buried in the hillside near his home, and the angel Moroni was the one that is said to have led them to these golden tablets. And at first, this angel Moroni wouldn't give it to him, but then apparently he relented, and Smith took them, and he wrote this Book of Mormon, and then apparently gave them back to the angel, and nobody knows what happened.
Maybe I think that he went to Ohio or something. That's where he got the vision about the many wives and the degree.
That could be a later thing.
I think that was a subsequent revelation.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, before we leave this,
Sure.
3 levels of heaven.
Yeah.
Is that where purgatory lands also is in a level of?
Purgatory is.
Purgatory, I know is not a Mormon.
You know what? Let's put that in the parking lot, Don.
Put that in the parking lot, okay, that works.
I know one way that I got rid of people trying to tell me I was going to become a Mormon. They were explaining the 3 levels of heaven, and I told them I'd come down and see him sometime.
Oh my.
And these were temple Mormons. I mean, Salt Lake City.
Yeah, well, usually when I tell them I'm a Lutheran pastor, that's it. A little bit different conversation as we start to look at people now that are a little bit closer. I think it's easy to say, you know, those Muslims over on the other side of the world, and now we're talking about people who don't believe the way we believe, being our neighbors and our friends, and
I
that
was just thinking
gets to
about
be a
that.
different
We're talking
conversation.
a lot here,
Yes.
and we didn't talk so much, we had questions, but we didn't know how to thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does anybody know about revised Latter-day Saints? If they were really different.
For the old church, they know what they're a Church of Mormon before the Latter-day Saints.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Right. That's what it started out as.
They still, there's still churches like that out there.
You know, I'm sure there are. I mean, I think it's probably like, you know, the word Protestant. You know, there's so many different offshoots. I'm sure that there's, and that's what happens. And you see it even in the Lutheran family tree. The tree starts out at Martin Luther, and then it branches out, and then someone comes back together, and branches out again, and it just does this through the centuries as groups of people get mad at one another and split, and then make up and come back together and split, and you always got a couple of branches that just travel straight in the airplane.
So do they have, like, the Catholics have Pope? Is there someone who is at the highest that can go up in that little full man thing?
The little old man thing. Yes, they have a, I don't know what they call him, but they do have someone at the end of the line that's in charge, just like we have a presiding bishop, or the Roman Catholics would have a pope. So they have someone at the top of the food chain that can some kind of a governance role, I suspect. I'm not really sure.
Don't they usually worship on Saturday?
No, no. That's Seventh-day Adventist.
Okay.
Yeah, and Jews. There's different Sabbaths. Islam, Sabbath day's Friday. Okay. All right, so let's keep going and we'll talk a little bit about Jehovah's Witnesses, which is another kind of what we would call a heretical offshoot of Christianity.
I don't know.
You've all probably heard and seen and experienced this kind of thing. Charles Russell founded the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society in Pennsylvania in 1872. You've all seen the Watchtower, the little magazine that they'll leave on your doorstep if you're not there, or try to give you if you answer the door. Little kind of a newspaper-looking periodical. Anyway, he finds the Jehovah's Witnesses using his own interpretation of Scripture. What does that tell us? Is that a good thing? I mean, I guess we all, at some degree, have our own interpretation of Scripture. But it's always suspect when somebody stands up in a crowd and says, you know, the Lord came down and talked to me, and I have something new to say, and He's only given it to me, and now I'm going to let you in on it. You know, really. Okay, so his own interpretation of Scripture. That's a first kind of a red flag for us that God would have some information for one person He wouldn't for other, and then there'd be all this kind of choosing around on who to share it with and whatnot. Shortly thereafter, it becomes known as Jehovah's Witnesses, and then 5.5 million Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide, 20% of those in the United States. Do we have a local? Is there a Jehovah's Witness?
Keep going.
Do they have a meeting place in okay.
Or Lewistown.
Lewistown, all right. So not as close as our backyards, but certainly again something that we're not unaccustomed to. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I think is Cindy Cavender a Jehovah's Witness now? Does anybody know? She was on Lent.
That's what I heard.
I think that's what she decided she would be. Central teaching, Jehovah's Witnesses believe they have been organized to announce the early establishment of God's rule on earth. Why would God establish some particular group of people to do that? That's a task of all of us as we read through Scripture, I think, to announce God's establishment, God's rule on earth. They have their own Bible translation, New World Translation, so again, they're going to pull some stuff out and stick some stuff in and write their own Bible, because they don't agree, I guess, with some of the stuff that's in there. They believe Adam lost the right to eternal life for all humanity. That's kind of this idea of original sin, something that we could say, yeah, okay, that seems like something that we remember from our Scripture. Then they do believe that Jesus came to pay for Adam's sin, but is not God Himself. Well, now you just lost me again, because how does Jesus atone for our sin if He's not God? It's really important that we have a Jesus that's 100% God and 100% human, isn't it? And without Him being human, and He can't possibly know the suffering that we have to go through as human beings, and without being God, He can't do anything about it. So we need this Jesus who has walked in our moccasins and has suffered the consequences of our sin, not of His own sin, but of our sin, but who is God Himself, and who can then, through this incredible resurrection story, atone for the sins that we commit. So we need a Jesus that is God, if we're going to have any hope of salvation. Well, here's the, you know, number 4 must prove our worthiness for salvation. Well, here we go again. We just see that time and time, don't we? Isn't it amazing how people just, we want to be in charge of our own salvation so badly, don't we? We just want to have some control over that. We want to think that, you know, that there's a way for us to be good. There's a way for us to do enough good things that somehow God's going to forgive us because we're just so darn good. And that's a very frustrating thing. It's so liberating to finally be free from this idea of works righteousness and say, I can't do that. I can't do it. I can't do those 10 commandments that are under our parking lot here. I fail every day, all 10 of them. You know, and I need a Jesus. And so for me, it's just, that's the liberation of being a Christian. It's knowing that I have a Jesus that loves me enough to atone for my sin. And it frees me to respond to that love with works of righteousness, but His righteousness, not mine. And it's the Adam and Eve story all over again, isn't it? So I'm going to eat that apple again and again and again. I eat that fruit from the forbidden tree. I'm going to feast on it every single day. I'm going back to that tree I'm not supposed to be eating. And I'll do it again and again and again. Why? Because I think, in my arrogance as a human being, I think that my plan is better than God's. That's really what it boils down to, isn't it? I know what's best for me, right? How could God know what's best for me? He's not me. Nobody knows what's best for me except for me. You know, that's what we keep going back to. Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe in hell. That's interesting, isn't it? Huh? Oh.
Everybody goes to heaven and that's where you get the love.
Oh, okay. That could be.
Everybody but the non-Mormons.
Yeah.
But
Everybody
the
but
non-Mormons, like, all my cousins are,
We stay.
I have a group of cousins that are all Temple Mormons down in Salt Lake, and they're all, and we've been baptized. They've been baptized for us, so we won't be one of those non-Mormons.
Yes. Yeah. They got in trouble for doing that a few years ago with the Jews. They got a whole bunch of public records from Hebrews and Jews that were born in the United States. And they started baptizing each other using the names of these Jews to try to save these Jews. And you know, they said, stop that now, or we're going to take you to court and sue you because we don't want to be baptized in your church. So they had to stop. They got an injunction. They had to stop doing it. You know. For Jehovah's Witnesses, death is a state of non